Welcome back. Alrighty. Last week we talked about using emotional stability to enhance our recovery. And in that video, I said that noticing when the noise level is ratcheting up in our heads can be a sign we might be under too much stress. Now, if we're successful in dialing that stress down in, say, 95% of our life, so that's most, maybe our easy training as well as our non-training lives, there will be times when that noise comes back. And that's what I want to talk about today. So that noise coming back when we are scared or under pressure can be a very important signal that something's up. Now, what's up? We each have to figure that out based on the situation. I'm going to give you some ideas and some situations. So things that might set us off: hot water, wind on the bike, getting touched, getting bumped on an open water swim, these types of situations. Pace control. If we're in a mass start swim or we're in a crit or a road race on the bike, we can feel like the whole situation is out of control and this noise can be rising and rising. It's not going to help us, because what we need to do is think clearly. And we need to learn to be with those feelings and kind of let them go and let them clear out of our heads. So what I recommend is gradual exposure. So build up, put yourselves in those situations, but put them in with relatively low stakes. And we can do that in training with our friends and our training groups, and we can simulate those situations. I mean, in the pool, we can simulate getting bumped. We can simulate being in a crowd. We can do mass start swims with a whole bunch of people packed in the lane, and then we're all just trying to swim a 400 and people are kind of going on top of each other and stuff. And it's a safe environment, and it will show you that the situation might not be as dangerous as our brains can make it appear when we're in the minute. And that's going to help you make better decisions and deal with that more successfully. So another area, intensity. It's a big area for me. And intensity is related to this fear I have of blowing up. Now, late in my elite career, I was in an Ironman race. Number one pinned on my chest. I was one of the favorites, and I completely blew to bits on the marathon, throwing up, having the worst race performance. I mean, way worse than what I was figuring was going to happen. And I got through that. I finished off, and I was like, well, that was bad, but it was nowhere near as bad as I thought it would be. So going through some of these experiences can be really educational if you pay attention to the fact that it was just an experience and it wasn't as bad as maybe you built it up. It was going to be like it before it had happened, this fear of blowing up. Now that fear is still with me. I haven't necessarily transcended it or anything. And it comes back in high intensity sessions. So 4x4 minutes, where you're trying to go is generate as high bike power, average bike power as you can across the set. You know, those second and third reps, there can be a lot of noise in my head. And I notice that. And in practicing it, I can just see the noise for what it is and just accept it and just keep going. And that's the idea, is you don't want to let the fear or the noise, or however you're going to describe it, derail you from what you want to do. And one of the key fears for somebody that is new when they get to marathons or ultra distance is it's a fear of fatigue, and it slows us down. Now, whether you call it the central governor theory or you have another theory you like to label it, there is a very real fear that happens when we start to get tired, and we can slow ourselves down before we really need to. And I call it the emotional content of fatigue. So there's this emotional content of fatigue, and really the only way I've found to get around it is to expose athletes to it. And the best way to expose yourself to it is multi-day training camps. So what you do is you need to get yourself fairly tired and then just do the same thing the next day and maybe the day after that. And if you're seeking to be a top amateur, some of these camps might be quite long. So it might be a 5-day block where it's an overload situation, and it might not be optimal from a physical point of view, but you have to remember what you're doing is you're training your mind. And you're training your mind to see fatigue really just as a sensation, and all the emotions around it go. So you can get to the point where, yeah, you're tired, but you're accepting it, and you're just going to keep on moving to the finish line as best you can. And if you listen to elites, particularly ultra distance elites, talk about their absolute breakthrough performances, you'll hear this. Some people talk about being in the pain cave or whatever, but really what you're looking for is acceptance of the situation. You just completely accept whatever's going on, and you have to keep executing your game plan to get yourself to the finish line. This is a really important thing if you're trying to do a breakthrough Ironman or if you're an ultra runner. Look for these feelings and go through them in training. And then when you get to the race, you'll be ready to face them. Because when we're under duress and we're getting to our ultimate limit, things can get pretty loud. And if you just kind of let all that go, you'll be able to perform much better. Thanks for listening. Back to recovery next week.